In an effort that shows that no good deed goes unpunished, Raw Story has recently reported today that Denver police arrested 10 people for building tiny houses for homeless people. Oh, here we go. According to KMGH Channel 7, an activist group called Denver Homeless Out Loud came to a public park on Saturday to begin to build tiny homes. Small dwellings intended as free housing for the homeless. Now, this group, Denver Homeless Out Loud, is actually protesting the sale of this public park to a private developer that actually plans to build an upscale apartment complex in the park instead. According to a statement, the group led by Denver Homeless Out Loud has been constructing tiny homes and trying to find a location for the village for over a year. But due to zoning and code constraints, they have not been able to find a legal place to put the houses. To me, that's not surprising. We all know how a lot of the cities around the United States view the homeless. I'll give you a hint if you don't know. They don't view them in a very good light. In fact, there have been cities that would load homeless people up into buses and send them to other cities. Or they'll put up things like anti-homeless person strips. There was even, and I remember doing a story where a church had put up a special, built a doorway, which if someone, people who were laying under it, would get drenched with water if they laid under it for too long. Not exactly friendly to the homeless. So it does not surprise me at all that they couldn't find a place to put these little houses. Now, according to activists, the Denver Housing Authority had also eliminated hundreds of low-income housing units to create the park. For a time, the land that the park's on was actually farmed by a group known as the Urban Farming Collective. Now that land is being sold to a developer, which will construct, quote, multifamily housing that will support gentrification in Curtis Park and drive rents upward and out of reach of current residents. Now, that's not a good thing. So what they did is that they tore down tiny little homes that helped homeless people in order to build an apartment complex for people of a higher income. Fucking brilliant. Really. I guess Denver doesn't want to actually solve the homeless problem or even try to alleviate it. Great. I mean, do you honestly think they would have zoned this? No, of course not. I wouldn't buy that for a second. Oh, go through the proper authority. Proper authority doesn't want to do anything about it. It's not like these were luxury homes, by the way, right? They look barely big enough to fit inside, to fit your stuff inside. Maybe a bed. That's it. Or if you don't have a bed, a sleeping bag on the floor. But it's enough to get you out of the elements, and that's what's important here. I know people that have bigger closets than this house. So, put it in context, right? Now, contrast this with some place like Utah, for example. In Utah, they've nearly gotten rid of homelessness by actually giving people homes. I guess that's the definition of getting rid of homelessness, is to give someone a home. Therefore, they are no longer homeless, right? Utah's program, Housing First, actually has about an 85% success rate. Now, they're not touting this. They're saying, I wish we could have helped more people. But some people do choose to walk away from the program. Or some people break the rules, get kicked out. That does happen. But an 85% success rate on ending homelessness, that's pretty significant. And yet, homeless people, and don't get me wrong, right? These people aren't getting a free ride, as a lot of people might think. They actually do pay rent. According to the Housing First program, residents pay $50 or 30% of their income, whichever is more. So yes, they do pay. They're not getting a free ride, but they are getting a chance. And this is very affordable housing. Now, studies have shown, by the way, if you're talking about cost, that it's actually cheaper to give people homes than to let them stay out in the street. According to data, the cost of providing an apartment and social work for clients in the Housing First program costs about $11,000 a year, while the average price of hospital visits and jail for street denizens equals about to $17,000 a year. So it is much cheaper to give someone a home and social work to help them get on their own feet, as opposed to leaving them out on the street. Now, this sort of begs the question of, if it's cheaper and leads to better outcomes in most situations, why aren't more cities doing it? Why aren't more states doing it? We've got an example of what works in Utah. Why are they not adopting it? Well, I think for one, it's because of our mentality. We blame homeless people for being homeless. We blame poor people for being poor. Whether or not it's because of their character, or they're lazy, or they're shiftless, or they're into drugs, etc., etc., etc. We blame you for being poor. Therefore, you don't deserve help. It's your lot in life. Why should I help you? That's our mentality. Another part of it is, I think people don't like to be reminded that homeless people exist. That's a sort of a hard thing to swallow, especially when you're the type of person who's very close, and a lot of Americans are very close to the edge, one paycheck away from disaster, one medical bill away from disaster. They don't like to think of how close they are to losing everything and becoming one of those people, as they would say. And as I mentioned, people tend to think of homeless people who are as those who just want to do drugs, drink, and that's not entirely wrong. There are a lot of homeless people who do have substance abuse problems, but part of it's an effect of mental illness or addiction. And those are precisely the kinds of people that actually need help, that we should be helping. And don't forget that many homeless people are veterans or children. And some of these veterans have deep psychological issues from their time serving our country. Or as I said, their families, their people, they're down on their luck, their children. We can't forget about who they actually are. Forget the stereotypes of who you think are homeless, what a regular homeless person looks like, because they're not all like that. Now, what we should do instead of tearing down tiny homes for homeless people to put up more expensive apartments is to adopt a program like Utah, which actually has been, as I mentioned, incredibly successful. And the reason for that is, other than just the cost, there is no reason that in the wealthiest country in the world, and with all the empty homes that we have, that people in America should be living on the street. There's just no excuse. There is no actual reason. There's just none. We can do better.